Are the judges ready? Am I time? Josh, let's begin. President Roosevelt once said, "The only sure bulwark of continuing liberty is a government strong enough to protect the interests of its people, and a people strong enough and well enough informed to maintain its sovereign control over the government." I would agree with him entirely. So what I'm going to do is begin by presenting my own case so you understand where I stand in the round, and then I'll move on and interact with my opponents. Before I begin, though, I'd like to bring up a resolutional analysis that I'm sure my opponent will agree with. My one point of resolutional analysis is that the resolution is not moral. And the resolution is not moral. And by moral, I'll define it as being that of violating or not violating rights. That is, an action is moral when it is upholding the rights, and it is immoral when it is harming rights. The way I say a resolution is not moral is that is because privacy in and of itself is not moral. And that is because the same action, or not action, privacy isn't an action, privacy is freedom from unwarranted intrusion. So the same privacy that the police use to operate justice and carry out the upholding of the law is the same privacy that the terrorists use to plan their next attack. Now, although the terrorist has not committed the attack and has not harmed anyone's rights and has not violated anything else, privacy is what gives them the protection to think about it. So privacy can be good, privacy can be bad, it's not moral, our values don't have to be moral. Morality is rather a nice little cherry we can put on top. But personally, I don't really like cherries, so we don't have to consider morality either way. The value is rather a measuring stick for the resolution, and I'm sure my opponent will agree with me. My value in today's debate round is that of national security, which is defined as the requirement to maintain the survival of the nation-state and its constituents. You see, without a means of protecting its people, a country cannot guarantee the security or the privacy of its people. And I will prove this through the following two value links. My first one is national security is the priority. National security must be prioritized above privacy because it's the means by which people's lives are protected. An example of this is World War II. Britain enforced regulations that required all building windows and doors to be concealed to prevent any light from shining in. By doing so, the civilians were guarded from enemy bombings. Of course, the citizens could have contested that this violated their privacy of their own home, but for the sake of national security, the government infringed on this privacy, saving their nation and their people. My second value link is that national security is a prerequisite. That is, national security is a prerequisite for privacy, because without national security, privacy simply cannot be maintained. In contrast to what my opponent claimed, I'd like to bring up the counterexample of this application of South Sudan. Since 1993, the people of Southern Sudan constantly had their privacy violated by the people of Northern Sudan. 200,000 people have reportedly been sold into slavery by North Sudanese slave traders. This violation of privacy occurs because the people of South Sudan had no national security. All of this changed, however, in 2011, when South Sudan declared themselves as a sovereign nation and created a military. Almost instantly, the ability for the North Sudanese to abuse citizens of South Sudan ended. I think the impact of this is quite clear. National security had to be established before privacy could be maintained. All of this leads me to my first contention, and my first contention is this. Privacy can harm national security. Privacy can harm national security because it prevents information from being released which potentially could cause controversy. Consider the application of the September 11 attacks. In 1998, the U.S. intelligence branch called the AISOC conducted an intelligence gathering endeavor known as Able Danger in order to discover an al-Qaeda cell member. By 1999, Able Danger had identified by name 4 of the future 9/11 hijackers. Surprisingly, though, they never reported this to the FBI. In 2005, Colonel Anthony Schaefer explained that when they tried to share this information with the FBI, the meetings were canceled for fear of controversy. Quote, "If Able Danger was portrayed as a military operation that violated the privacy of civilians who were legally in the United States," end quote. The impact of this argument is that if privacy had been correctly valued, national security would have been allowed to responsibly address this issue. My second contention is the following. Privacy is second to national security. Privacy is second to national security because it would rather uphold immediate comfort over human lives. During World War II, while most of the Allied world instituted curfews and light-out laws to prevent the Axis powers from finding bombing towers, there was a small Polish town by the name of Wayloon that refused to restrict the privacy of its citizens. As a result, the town was lit up by the German Luftwaffe, which obliterated over 90% of the city and 3 out of every 5 inhabitants. The most tragic part is that those very lives could have been saved had privacy been restricted by allowing the government to enforce a laid-out policy, even on people who didn't want it. With that understood, I'd like to move on to my opponent's case. If we correctly realize that the resolutional analysis I provide is not saying that you should vote for human dignity because it's more moral than national security, ultimately you don't choose the value based on morality. You choose the value based on how it measures the resolution. When that's understood, my first argument against human dignity is it's not external to the resolution. That is, it's not external to the resolution. And my opponent admitted this in cross-ex and in his second contention, where he stated, every time privacy is violated, human dignity is violated. Every time human dignity is violated, privacy is violated. That is, I'm having a hard time drawing a clear distinction between the two. If human dignity is not external to the resolution, then what you're getting is a circular argument. You're getting, how do we know privacy is undervalued when human dignity is undervalued? What's human dignity? A violation of privacy, which is a violation of human dignity. So they're not that different. My second argument is that this is begging the question. That is, it is assuming the resolution, not proving the resolution false or true, but assuming the resolution to claim that privacy is undervalued when your value is human dignity, because that's exactly what he said earlier. They both are the same thing. My final argument against human dignity is it isn't a consistent measuring stick. That is, even if you grant that it can do as it claims, national security will consistently judge privacy the same way, and human dignity won't. Let me give you an example of this. The recent pro-abortion arguments have been the following. We recognize the baby in the womb is a human. Okay? We will grant that. But now what? Well, we don't give them the same level of dignity. Why is that? Because they're in a different place, they're in a different brain level development. None of it really makes any sense, but they're granting it's a human in the womb, but they're not giving it the same level of dignity. You see, my question is this: what gives you dignity? Well, being a human. That's as basic as it gets. So if one person can say, I'm upholding human dignity and still allow for the killing of babies, someone else can uphold human dignity and not allow for the killing of babies, then you're going to get very different ideas of human dignity, and it's not going to consistently weigh privacy. Let's move on to his own contentions. You can cross-apply those arguments against his first contention of human dignity being fundamental. Oh, it's fundamental. They're not for reasons of being moral. That's not part of our resolution. The second argument that privacy is the goal, in all of his applications, as he says, shows violation of rights, palbretta, euthanasia, slavery. All of these are property right violations, not privacy violations. And so for the following, I would ask you to vote for the negative. Thank you. And I now stand open for cross-examination.
Okay, so are all the judges ready? And it's time. Congrats again. This is still unreal to me, so this is really cool. But starting with your value of national security. So essentially, could you redefine that for me?
Right. The requirement to maintain the survival of the nation state and its constituents.
Okay, so essentially you're looking at protecting the interests of the constituents of the country. Okay, very interesting. Under your first contention, you essentially were saying that national security is a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you stated that the resolution is amoral, correct?
Yes.
And so, does the resolution being amoral equal that our value should also not be judged on the basis of morality?
I don't believe that our values have to be amoral. Our values can be moral, but like I said, that's the cherry on the top. That isn't the standard for determining.
Okay. So you would agree, though, that we have to make value judgments on these values to determine which one is better, correct?
Value judgments. Mm-hmm. What do you mean a value judgment of a value?
We have to weigh which value is inherently more valuable and more
right.
useful,
and I think we would both. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think we would both agree that the ability to do that is how consistently they determine the validity of the resolution.
Okay. Now, you did agree with me when I said that human dignity always is violated when privacy is violated, correct?
That was your claim, that when human dignity is violated, privacy is violated. When privacy is violated, human dignity is violated.
So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. All right. So looking at my value then, would you agree that it's actually a consistent measuring stick? Because every time privacy is violated, then human dignity is violated as well.
Oh, not necessarily at all. For example, that was your claim. I believe I refuted it when I gave you the example of human dignity not being consistent with privacy, and that was the example of the pro-abortionist arguments.
Okay. Now, you did agree to my definition of privacy, correct?
Freedom from unauthorized intrusion.
Essentially with, yeah.
Yes.
You did agree to it. Okay. And so you would agree that we have to be...
Although I did disagree with the part on the privacy that allows, the self-limiting idea.
The self-limiting idea, yeah. And you disagreed with that in your resolution on that.
Entirely.
Okay, but did you ever provide a counter definition to privacy?
Well, it was the same as yours without the self-limiting.
Oh, so you're just cutting that out?
I don't believe the words of your definition said self-limiting, or maybe they did.
Essentially, yeah, it was self-limiting.
So you were adding that on, and I just say with
Basically.
the strict definition of the words.
Okay. What warrant did you have to say that this resolution is not a moral resolution?
Well, I gave the example of how the same privacy that gives the police the ability to uphold justice is the privacy that the terrorist does. The terrorist hasn't committed an act of crime yet.
Okay.
Yet they're planning to, so that's privacy.
But so that's privacy, but that's not the definition of privacy as I defined it, was it?
The terrorists haven't had their unauthorized intrusion, so that would be privacy, is it not?
Okay, but they are going to use that freedom from intrusion to harm someone else, correct?
Well, we can't take away the terrorist rights until they violate somebody else's. And if they haven't violated somebody else's, then we can't violate their privacy.
Okay, but once they violate someone else's, then you would agree that they're actually in violation of privacy, correct?
That would be after the fact.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.